Welcome back to another weekly GMBN Tech show. Coming up on the show this week, we check out some of the cool new XC bikes that seem to be spawning out onto the scene from Trek and Mondraker in particular. There's some great top mods from you guys and a really cool little rewind project I want to talk to you about. Okay, so jumping straight into news, now there's a new Trek on the horizon.
Yes,
we seem to keep popping up at various races and Instagram accounts.
Yeah, it's been kind of an exciting week for Trek. They launched their new Top Fuel.
Oh, that's a bike. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But with a bit of kind of concealing gaffer tape, they seem to be running a prototype bike at the World Cups, which is really exciting. Not only, obviously, a new bike is always pretty cool, but just the way the design seems to be. And it's kind of leaving it to your imagination as how they can fit. It looks like there's a shock in there. There seems to be an air.
Yeah, there's definitely a valve or something out the front, and it looks like there's a cable that I could see on some of the pictures. Here's a couple of shots now. You can't really see too much. There's a shot of Jolanda Neff racing it. It's got some sort of black housing on the top tube to conceal what they don't want us to see. I would be surprised if it was more of a shock actuated bike. I think there's something there with the ISO decoupler system because of the fact it's a super light system, and especially they've already got the top fuel.
Especially the top fuel coming out kind of. But it reminds me a bit of, can you remember the Focus First?
Yeah, okay.
Which were, maybe it's something like that, maybe a bit more refined, because looking back, that bike I thought looked amazing at the time. It wasn't that refined, was it? But it hasn't aged that well. No. But maybe it's seated within the top tube.
Yeah.
That shot kind of
so the common cell bikes have the sort of the dip in the underside of the top tube. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what that is actually. I think it's going to be a really sleek looking bike, and no doubt Trek they're going to announce that one fairly soon.
Yeah, pretty exciting. So we also have 3 kind of big cross-country releases, as we alluded to, the new Trek Top Fuel. Yeah. Which is kind of a departure from what we'd previously known it as. This is a now 120mm travel fork. Yeah. Well, the option to, which is actually an old Pike Ultimate.
Which that makes me smile, because that suggests this bike could probably do a lot more.
But it's got, in a large, it's a longer reach than my Mega.
Yeah, that's a nice roomy bike as well. Have a look at this one on screen. So this is the all black Stealth edition. Of course, I'm going to pick that one. I always pick out the black ones. But look at that. How bad boy does that look for an XC bike?
Yeah, and it's actually also departed from the fully floating. Yeah. They originally had that fully floating shock, then on their downhill bike, enduro bike, and they've eventually worked it down. So maybe it was
more simplified.
Kind of, yeah, it looks great though.
I think this is a telling tale for what you're going to start seeing in XC racing coming in the future. Over the last few years, we've been telling you a lot about the sort of fact that short travel bikes actually give you a bit more than a bigger travel bike. Big travel bikes, by all means, are fantastic to ride, but you have to push them really hard to get the most out of them. And to much a degree, I think you're desensitised from the ground a bit. You don't feel quite as much, whereas the short travel bikes in combo with the bigger wheels, it's a winning combo.
Yes, totally.
I've been batting on about these for about a year now. It's just like, I just haven't got one yet. I just need to get one. In fact, the next bike is exactly what I'd love to ride right now. It's that new Mondraker.
Mondraker F Podium.
My God, have a look at this thing.
It is so stealth. It's absolutely decked out.
It looks like a better version of what the Foxy was. That was their 140 trail bike. But everything about this looks fast. Yeah. That slender line from the seat stay running all the way into the top tube up to the head tube there. It just looks fantastic. And it's big. Yes. It's really big. The XL's got 500mm reach on it.
And what's interesting is
massive.
3 years to develop, which is actually quite a long time. If you think that a cycle of a bike is normally 3 years. Yeah. So pretty much they've spent a whole life cycle of the previous model refining, tuning, and it came out with that amazing kind of digital camo.
That's right. And that was handmade in Germany as well. They did their prototype development specifically for their XC bikes separately to the rest of the range.
Oh wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so bike that Carlos Coloma was riding, the man with the coolest tash, arguably, in cross country. The bike he was riding was a very special project bike. Super high end. Yeah. I think I'm going to try and have a look at some of that tech in another video because I might be able to pop and see those guys fairly soon. Okay, so what we've got next? So there's a pivot on the horizon as well, a new Mach 4.
Similar thing.
The Mach 4 back in the day was like a trail bike. It wasn't even their sort of XC type bike. So what have they got now?
Well, it's, yet again, long, slack, super duper cross country bike. An interesting thing with the Mach 4 though, not only does it have the integrated Fox Live suspension system, but it's got 2.5-inch clearance for tyres on the rear.
That's huge for a short travel. What's the travel on this?
This is 100mm.
100mm travel bike, so you can fit some massive rubber in there.
4 30mm chainstays is
That's
short.
Yeah, that is fairly short for that sort of bike. So Chris Kokolis, the guy behind Pivot, he's always been like a Fox believer. So it's no surprise from my point of view to see the Fox Live built straight into that. I'm guessing it's got Shimano on there as well, probably offer a Di2 spec. That's the way he likes to run things. Of course, he's always used a DW Link from the beginning, and some of his bikes actually have been some of the better iterations of using it.
Yeah.
They work really well. It really stands up for the climbing. Good amount of anti-squat in there. Decent bike design, by all accounts.
No, yeah, totally.
Okay, so Atherton bikes again in the headlines, and this time is they're teaming up with FSA. Now, what do we know about FSA at the moment, other than the fact they make really decent wheels and, by all accounts, some decent cranks?
Yes, so they're going to support the Athertons for dropper seat posts, cranks, and cooperation to develop solution for drivetrains.
Well, that's kind of been on the horizon. I think we've seen this before, along with TRP and other brands. Starting to work into that.
Yeah, and actually, when I was doing that bike check in Rotorua and speaking to the Sun guys,
Yeah.
they were actually free to run whatever drivetrain they wanted. Not because they couldn't get someone to sponsor them the drivetrain, but rather, I think, on the very down low, FSA, that's an area they want to go into, and they don't want their sponsored teams to be tied up in other commitments.
Yeah, sure.
So it could be really exciting. Their new road group set, I've had a little peek at it, I think it came out a little while ago, but that looks really cool.
I could see them being quite good, actually. And it's something a few years ago I probably would have laughed at a bit, thinking, why bother when you've got SRAM and Shimano doing this so well? But actually, like TRP have done this quite well. The rotor system, like a little bit clunky looking maybe, but it feels amazing when you actually use it. It's really well put together. So I definitely think there's room for stuff. And of course, you've got box components, doing it on a more budget, wallet-friendly purpose, but it works really well too.
It's pretty cool, and I think it goes to show the way the bike industry's worked is the trailblazing of SRAM and Shimano. It now makes kind of room in their wake for other companies to come in and look at refinement.
Yeah.
It's huge R&D budgets to even think about going to 11 or 12 speed drivetrain when they did.
Yeah.
But now looking at it and the lessons they've learned probably isn't such a massive undertaking, although still, I'm sure, costs a pretty penny.
Yeah.
But not quite like before, just going at it by yourself.
I mean, I think if FSA are doing this with the Athertons, the product I'd like to see them make is a rebuildable rear derailleur.
Yes.
Something that's fairly gravity friendly. It doesn't have to have that many gears. It could have eight speed or whatever. Run it with a close ratio block on there. Something that's really good for the people out there that need that product.
Yeah, I would love to see a derailleur you can replace the bushings on.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
That's all I want.
All the components, if you could replace them, because that's the bit of the bike that we're still struggling with, that you still smash off. And if you've got like an XT or an XTR on there, it's heartbreaking sometimes to see all that amount of money just hanging off the back of your bike.
Especially when you're riding with someone and you see somebody else smash off a mech. And
Well, that's kind of funny,
you
actually.
don't want to say, you're just like, I'm sorry for your loss.
I'd pick the other one, I'd just laugh at them. Okay, so this one's interesting. I've seen you've actually chucked on the script here, Henry. Scott acquires Bold.
Yes.
So Bold cycles, they're the ones that use the hidden shocks that house on the inside, driven by the linkage. It's got like an extra arm on it, basically. Really smart system. They worked closely with DT, I think, to develop that in the first place. And we know, of course, that Scott have also worked quite a lot with DT, developed twin lock and things like that.
I don't think they're actually their Swiss headquarters are actually based that far apart.
Yeah.
And a love thy neighbour sort of thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think there could be some really interesting developments there.
And I think it gives, I imagine, the purchasing power they will have now.
Yeah.
Will be able to drive pricing down on things they do buy for their bills, which will be, and I imagine running a small company must be pretty stressful, in terms of the amount of units they shift. Having that logistical support from Scott is going to make a huge difference, I think.
I do wonder as well if they're going to be able to share some development there. Because from my point of view, I could see an XC race bike, let's say, using some of that tech from the Bold to make it really, really slender and nice looking.
Yeah, no, I think it does.
Hidden shock in the house.
Super smart.
Man, that could be really good. Okay, one of my favourites, Ibis, the brand hailing from Santa Cruz. They've got some new wheels out. So a few years back, they did the 741 and the 941s, and they were huge, like 40mm wide rims, and they were pushing the whole low pressure thing quite a while before. I guess the public were doing it. I think riders and mechanics have always experimented with tire pressure quite a lot. By going larger volume, running soft, you get all the benefits of way more traction and comfort. And they've got some new ones, got the S28 and the S35, which you can see on the screen right now.
Yes, they seem to be kind of an evolution of what they were already doing. It uses a similar system to the Stands. It's actually the Stands patent.
Yep.
And so I think you immediately notice about the stand swims is they're low volume.
Yeah, sure.
And they do that by, it's called a BSD patent, so it kind of reduces the sidewall height.
That's the stands patent, got it, yep.
Yeah, and basically they've licensed that to Ibis, and this is their kind of Ibis's work with stands input. So super cool. It seemed to be running by the EWS team for a while, which is about as hard a testing as you could hope for, really.
Yeah.
And
if they can withstand that, you're doing well.
You're going pretty well.
To be fair, their last wheels, I mean, if the development's the same, the last wheels are absolutely fantastic. I know a lot of people still use those wheels now. And I do know from chatting to Scott Nicol at Ibis, they barely had any come back on warranty terms. Quite rare, actually, for a rim manufacturer to do that. But yeah, so I've got high hopes that they're offering these. You said the pricing's quite good on them as well.
Yeah, if you buy them with an Ibis bike, it gets pretty cut. Like, you know,
they're good at that. It's subsidised stuff, so you can hop up and get the better equipment.
If you wanted it with some i9 hubs, I mean, it is $1,800, so it is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money,
but compared where it sits in the market, I think is the telling bit. And that doesn't seem that outrageous compared to some of the other prices.
I think the way that they work as a company is quite smart because you can do it your own way. You can get a frame, you can get a bike kit, you can get the frame that you want set up with different specs, and you get the subsidised components if you want to go the whole hog.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. You're seeing that from other brands as well, a lot of direct sale brands like Orbea. You can pick and customise stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, I think it's great, this new breed of carbon wheels that is moving away from just ultra stiff.
Yeah, making them compliant and actually feel nice.
Yeah, totally.
Too stiff is not nice, and you've got to be pretty flipping strong to hold on to that stuff.
I've just got arms like wet spaghetti, not a chance for me, mate. So next we have the Met Parachute MCR.
Oh, there's a classic.
So the Met Parachute is like the Terminator of helmets. It always comes back. The first one wasn't that
Let's just
easy on the
avoid
eyes.
the first one.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that in a minute.
But the second generation actually was actually quite ahead of its time. Long before the Fox Pro Frame, all this sort of stuff, was basically a trail full-face helmet. And now, it seems to be a real refinement of that.
Yeah, I always used to laugh at some of these earlier helmets.
Yes.
But actually what Met did was way ahead of its time. Because the French and the European riders were doing enduro and this sort of riding long before anyone else was. We were too focused on a big downhill bike, so they were absolutely right to do this.
This new one looks great. And it's actually built off what looks like the Rome, which is their open face helmet.
It's not a bad shape, actually.
And it looks really good. It doesn't. I think when we looked at the first generation Bell Super and stuff, they didn't look like a full face helmet. They looked like an open face playing dress up.
Yep.
You know, this one I think actually looks
like it's supposed to look like that.
And I think it looks great. Comes in small, medium, large, loads of colours, and actually was wearing one of their legit helmets too.
Yep.
And they're super cool. You see them floating about, and they look great.
They've definitely had a bit of a U-turn in their styling and stuff. The product, I think, has always been really high quality and really good. But yeah, good to see them back.
Yeah, no, great.
But back to that Mark 1 helmet. True story this. So passport to Soleil in 2014. A descent that goes down into Linderay Valley.
Oh, yeah.
It's flat out. Like you could do 40, I reckon, down there pretty easily. They've got this big rain ruts that come across.
Yes.
And,
actually,
and if you're tanking down there, the only way to get over those safely is just a tiny little bunny hop at the last minute, and they could be quite high. And I remember hopping up one of these, going pretty flipping fast, and I got overtaken by a guy who'd just ridden and got bucked. And he came past me on his front wheel. And this guy was the original user of the original Met Parachute. So he had one of those on with a peak like over his eyes.
Yeah.
He had full down easy body armour on, right, and he's just wearing lycra shorts and a pair of trainers, a pair of running shoes.
Yeah. What else?
That was it. That's all he was wearing. No pads.
I had a rumour that
nailed himself.
I had a rumour those old Met Parachutes could be used as a tin opener. Is there any truth in that?
Let's get one and try.
No, but fair play to Met. That new helmet looks absolutely banging.
Yeah, good stuff, guys. All right, now it's time for Bike Cave. This is where you keep your bikes. Could be a garden shed for you. It could be in the front room when you're watching TV. Doesn't matter where it is. If you've got some photos of where you work on your bike and you lock them up, please send them in to us. The link to our uploader is on the bottom of the screen right there. You can also email them to us at hellotech@gmbn.com if you do struggle using that. First up this week is from Jed in Holder, ACT, Australia. And he says, not much space in here, but it works fine for us. My wife has just got her first MTB in Marlin after riding a single-speed road bike. They live 1.5 kilometres from Mount Stromlo Park, which of course held that 2009 World Cup in which Steve Peat won. It was a World Champs actually, wasn't it? Time GMBN came to Australia. I completely agree with that. Have you ever been to Australia?
Yeah.
I've obviously spent a lot of time in New Zealand.
Yeah, no, I went over last year. Super cool. Mountains are bigger than I expected. Spiders are as big as I expected.
Yeah.
I'm not cut out, mate.
it does feel like everything on that island can kill you quite easily.
Yeah. But no, super cool. Love to go back.
I like the amount of space in here. So there's not much space, but it's fine for us.
Do you know
what I can see there is like quite a lot of space.
Yeah.
Like, not like in here.
But Australians, their neighbours lives like 10 miles away.
That's a very good point.
It's a different context.
Yeah.
But what I like about it, and I'm a big fan of workshops with white walls.
Yeah.
It makes seeing everything easier.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? It's like so much brighter.
Yeah.
I think it looks real tidy.
It does. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got more bikes than that in half the amount of space all crammed in the back of my little
top and tail
bike cave. But yeah, always good to see, like, you know, nice organisation in the drawer there. You've got your brake fluid, and it looks like you've got them in clear plastic bags to keep them from contaminating other stuff. Got your muck off and your degreaser down the back, and for some reason you've got some Ajax on the side.
Yeah, stubborn stains, mate.
To bleach the work surface, perhaps. Or bleaching other stuff, who knows. Nice track as well. Always looking good in racing red.
Yeah, no, they do look sharp, eh?
Yeah, nice looking rig, that. Very clean. Next up is from Chris in Cleveland. My daughter moved out, so my son took her room, leaving me to have a bike cave in that spare room. Completely rammed full of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think you could fill a room with more stuff than this.
Yeah.
Computer, you've got the sound system, pictures of bikes, you've got your roll cab system down the back there. Random picture of you with some graffiti and a Joker, by the looks of it too.
Yeah.
And I see you've got plenty of trail maps prints. They're cool. I like the guys that do that stuff. It makes some really nice artwork. In fact, I need to make sure we get some on the new setup downstairs. We need to give it a bit of a tweak.
Yeah.
Make it look a bit nicer, I reckon.
Yeah, I love that photo of Gwyn as well. That's like my favourite colourway.
That is rad.
Oh, so smart. Yeah.
So when's that from?
2016, would it?
Yeah, something like that.
No, he'd have been... Yeah, maybe. I think that was like the year that he was... Because he went to Bell...
That's the year when he couldn't make out what size bike he wanted to ride, isn't it?
Oh, yes, that would be it.
Yeah, it's always a pain when you get that one wrong. Okay, now it's time for Rewind, which of course is the retro part of the show. So if you've got anything retro or you want to know about retro stuff and how it progressed into what we ride today, let us know in the comments underneath. And of course, if you've got any photos of any cool retro stuff or any video clips, please send them in to us using the uploader link right on the bottom of the screen there. Now this week I want to talk a little bit about two of the bikes I used in a video that went live at the weekend over on GMBN. I did a retro versus modern, looking at the way XTR has got us to where we are today and the bikes that kind of made that possible. And the two bikes I used in that was the Trek Y33, which is this one you can see on the screen. Now this bike was very kindly lent to me by Jamie Lynn, who owns a bike shop chain called Mountain Mania. Now, Jamie has got a collection. He must have 80 or 90 retro bikes. He's got pretty much anything you can imagine he has. I'm going to go and do something with him at the Malverns Classic in a few weeks here in the UK because there's a big retro race happening. I've not signed up, but I'm quite tempted to sign up and terrify myself if I can find a bike that I can be kindly lent to race on. But anyway, this bike, so it dates to 1994. It's got a carbon fibre monocoque front end and it's got a unified rear triangle on it. So it was kind of funny at the time because everyone back then wasn't trying to make bikes that worked particularly well. They wanted to make a bike that didn't pedal like a full suspension bike. Yeah. So they tried to make this pedal like a hardtail by putting a bottom bracket on the back end of the bike. The downside is when you were stood up on the bike, the suspension felt a lot firmer. Yeah. However, that one you can see there is completely original spec, except I think the original tyres had perished. We've got some reissues on there.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And the same with the saddle. But it's all exactly as it would have been when you bought this.
So nice.
But I think it weighs 25 pounds and it's only £1.5 pounds heavier than what their XC World Cup equivalent bike was, which is a carbon hardtail back then. Yeah. So for a 100mm travel full suspension bike in 1994 to weigh 25 pounds, that's pretty amazing.
It's pretty incredible.
And of course, Trek, being a sort of company that refines products over the years, you know, they use that technology to get to where we are today. Like the bikes we looked at in news earlier, you can see it's all coming from this bike. And now the other bike I used in the video is the Foes LTS. Now this is a complete polar opposite. You'll see it also has a bit of a weird sort of flying V style front triangle on this. Now this was developed by Brent Foes. Now, he's a bit more of a fringe designer compared to Trek being a massive, you know, multi-million corporation. Now, he comes from the world of off-road truck racing. So you can see he took a completely different approach. Simple single pivot out back. Also dates to 94. And this one, 150mm travel out back. Completely different bike.
And I think it's one of the most recognisable silhouettes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's iconic. Both of them are, actually, to be fair.
Getting on those two bikes compared to the Orbea that I rode in the video, when I first got on the Trek, I was like, I can't ride this. Like, it was tiny, it was way too small for me, but I honestly thought, like, I can't ride this. But after a little while, I started to remember what it was like back then, the riding. And we joked about it a bit on set when filming, because you don't really ever slow down with brakes like that. Like
one speed.
They kind of slow down, but not much. If you actually need to slow down, it's like, oh, right, this is bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad. Like, and you just get to see where you're going to crash further down the trail.
Totally. Yeah.
It's just polar opposite compared to what we have today. I think it's amazing, but it's not a bad design, and I was quite surprised by it. So I think a little bit of time, you could get used to one of those and do something all right on one.
Certainly a head turner.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'd have one of those just hang up on the wall on the set. It's just a beautiful looking thing. All the bikes we have now is stuff like this. We have to thank for it. Yeah. And I think that's why it's, they're not as good as what we have now by any means, but they're still pretty damn cool in my book.
So this week in Top Mods, we have been submitted what's a really interesting bike. Something we think we may have seen before.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it somewhere.
But no details. You didn't upload any information.
Didn't put your details on the uploader, dude. Please get in touch with us and tell us a bit about this. You could just do that via email to save you uploading all the same pictures again.
It looks like linkage driven single pivot.
Yeah, one of them.
Steel looks pretty tidy. Got some cool shots of him riding it.
I love how slender that back end is.
Totally,
I think it looks really good.
Yeah.
The geometry looks really good on it as well.
Yeah, and it just looks super cool. We'd love to know more about it, really.
Yeah, please get in touch and we'll talk about it a bit more on next week's show. Don't forget to tell us your name, where you're from, and what you've done to get this far with the bike, where you made it, all that stuff. I think it's wicked.
Yeah, looks rad. Nice rear end as well.
And in other news was this one here from Phil. He hasn't said where he's from, but it looks like the UK. He's been watching the channel since the start, which is really cool. And he says, "Hi, Dottie and Henry. I've just changed the cassette chain and jockey wheels on here, and I thought I'd make the use of an old tyre that blew up. So he's used this for some protection on the down tube here. I would have said you could probably get away with having a little bit more on a down tube. I know it makes it unsightly, but you do get those rock strikes in that whole lower part of the frame down there. Yeah. But what you've done is really cool, and I like the way you've also curled a bit around on the back of the seat tube there, where the sort of the yoke is to get mud and stones and stuff stuck in there.
It's got, there was a time where it was very prevalent, and you actually often see it if you're in Europe or whatever, but attaching old tyres onto your bike. You'd even see people having for extra grip on wet downhill runs.
Yep, on saddles and stuff.
On saddles, but down tube protection. If you go into the Alps for a week and you've got nice trail bike, why not?
Yeah, I quite often see a lot of people doing like season airs, doing a whole down tube. So if you're going to load it on the back of a pickup truck, you've already got protection on there. It just means if you do want to sell your bike later, it's going to be in much better condition. You
can also make some minion flip-flops.
Minion flip-flops?
Minion flip-flops, season airs weapon of choice.
There's an idea for a good hack. I think we need to make some tyre flip-flops.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Also done some other cool mods on here. So he's upgraded from a RockShox Reba 120 up to a Yari 140. He's put different bars on there, different step. In fact, it looks like he's put pretty much different everything on there. And he's also using some of those rim-packed noodle inserts. They're called Send Nudes. Another sort of pool noodle type rim protection. The bike's quite popular, nice and light. They don't absorb the fluid that's in there, and they're said to work very well apparently. So
awesome.
Nice upgrades on there. It's good to see, obviously, constant refining, a bit of colour coordination on there. Okay, and next one up, I think this is a really cool one, Henry. So this is from Justin. He's in Manila in the Philippines.
Oh wow.
And we know we've got quite a few viewers out there. I think we definitely need to try and get a trip over that way. So
and sleep on anyone's floor, hit us up.
I think we should be going and not Neil and Blake, because they seem to get good holidays around here. But check this out. So he says, I'm 5'11" and I'm finding the 450 reach on my size large a little cramped. So basically trying to eke out any extra size on the bike possible. And I've not seen one of these, but it's a Ride Alpha offset headset. So he's got an extra 5mm reach. Obviously, you're not going to be able to put that on every bike, but on that head tube orientation, you can. So he's lengthened it by 5mm, but he's also raised it, slackened it by 0.5 degrees. And then he's put some offset bushings on the rear shock to further lower it to compensate, but also giving him another ½ degree.
Oh, nice.
He's taken a full degree off by doing that.
Wow.
He's also changed the Monarch air can to a Debonair to make it a bit more supple, and he's added some volume spacers in there. to get around that.
It's cool actually, and those reach adjust, angle adjust headsets can be quite tricky to fit. Sometimes if you use a standard press, the turning motion of it takes them off centre.
Yeah.
So you have to be very patient with the little top.
Yeah, make sure you get it completely on centre. We're going to do a video on changing the geometry of your bike and all the little ways that you can do this. Some of them are super cheap and easy just by changing a tyre, and other ones more expensive, like you're talking about with angled headsets. We're going to tell you what the effects are and how you can do it at home, and we're going to show you how to do that. So keep an eye out for that one on GMBN Tech soon. Okay, so Tech of the Week. I've seen something on the script here. I'll leave you with this one, Henry.
Yes, so Pool Components, kind of
amazing company.
Yeah, OG, just makes some lovely stuff. He's got some
beautiful machine stuff.
New kind of bronze kind of retro kit out. Now I would contend,
you could say chocolate.
I would contend it's kind of Pooh Brown, but I think it's pretty cool. Pooh Brown, long live Pooh Brown. It looks incredible. I just want to grow a handlebar moustache, get a gravel bike, learn about artisanal coffee, and just admire the creation. It looks incredible.
I would be diplomatic and say chocolate brown, but I've just come back from a festival, so I've kind of had it with.
Yeah, I imagine. Don't want to trigger anything there.
I enjoyed getting home. Let's put it that way.
Running through the front door, eh?
Waddling.
But no, they look absolutely great. Loads of bits and pieces to kind of deck out your more retro mountain bike. And I think, imagine like an old kind of clunker or kind of gravelly sort of bike with those, you know, light accenting of the...
I've got to say, when you said about this, I was like, this cannot look good, but actually it looks really, really cool.
I'm
with Tamil tyres and going the whole hogger.
You'd want to commit.
It's really good. Yeah.
You'd want to commit.
Oh yeah, definitely, I would. Okay, there we go. There's another weekly GMBN Tech show in the bag. For a couple more videos, click down here if you want to see the retro versus modern I was talking about, where I ride both of those 1994 bikes.
And if, like Doddy, you also spend your weekends enthusiastically drinking, check out these camelback hacks.
Oh yes, good ones in there. As always, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you love what we do at GMBN Tech, and don't forget to leave some comments downstairs there.